Good evening. Meeting is called to order at 6:02. Roll call. Commissioner Mina. Here. Commissioner Khan. Commissioner Torres. Commissioner Eyster.
Present.
Commissioner Phillips.
Present.
Commissioner Query.
Present.
Commissioner Crosby.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Do we have any public comments this evening? It doesn't look like we do, so we will move on to the approval of the minutes. Everyone has a copy of the minutes from the November meeting. Any additions or corrections?
Mine's a spelling error. Under campaign, we should say hashtags instead of hashtags.
Yeah, that's what I was looking for. I knew I'd seen it and couldn't find it.
Hashtags.
Okay.
You gotta hate autocorrect, right?
Any other additions or corrections? If not, can we vote to approve the minutes of the November 18th commission meeting?
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Do we have any administrative updates?
We do. I'm gonna zip through this unless you have questions, just to let you know where we are these days. As you saw in the minutes, we had a see something, say something. I just want to give you an update. We were in the process of trying to come up with a platform, and what we found out is that we had hoped to use the Microsoft platform from the city, where folks could upload stories, pictures, etc. As it turns out, we can't use that because only city employees can do that on that platform. So we are trying to come up with another platform. Otherwise, once we can get that going, then we'll be able to put that in motion. I just want to bring you up to date on a couple of things. Where to start? Okay, updates on Amendment 185, source of income. Good evening. I met with HUD, and they gave us a preliminary thumbs up with the amendments made to 185. They remain very happy that we're putting in source of income, because that is all about affirming, why can't I ever get the AFFH? Affirmatively furthering fair housing, and that puts that in motion. However, I do expect, based on some feedback that I've gotten or some comments back from one or two council members, I know that one is definitively not voting for it, and the mayor is also now pushing back on source of income, although he has not told me this directly. So this is tomorrow night. HUD wants it. You all voted in favor for it. PHRC has been backing us since we put it in motion. And just for further support, we attended a forum on Friday in Harrisburg, a governor's roundtable on his 10-year housing plan. And there were the Secretary of DHS for the state and the Secretary of Community and Economic Development for the state, both of whom recognized, because PHRC held us up as an example of what smaller jurisdictions should be doing around the state, because part of the governor's plan is also to include removing those obstacles and affirming the Fair Housing Act. So they actually held up us as an example of what it means to do that with the source of income amendment. So we have this very good news that from a statewide perspective, now the Secretary of DHS knows that we are doing this, and it's going to the governor's office. PHRC is backing us. The question will be, will we get enough council support, and therefore, and then also the support of the mayor tomorrow night. So that's where we stand with this right now. Fingers crossed, feel free to come and be part of that fun tomorrow night if you'd like. I will be presenting all of the, as much of the literature that I can put forward that says that there's actually a mandate, that Affirming Fair Housing Act is actually a mandate that's given to any agency, any government agency, any program that receives HUD money is expected to work on ways to remove these obstacles. It's in their literature. So I'm hoping that will make the sell. We'll see what we can do tomorrow, so I just wanted to let you know.
Yeah.
While this is not, we are not putting forward this other ordinance that's going forward tomorrow. Equina, Washington has introduced another ordinance which is critical at this time. And both Saimata and Miguel give you an example as to why this is going to be critical going forward based on some of the cases that they have seen. 154 is the Trust Act. During Mayor Bracey's administration, she issued an executive order that basically put in place a policy that would make it, I don't want to say illegal, but city employees would not be allowed to assist ICE with any sort of investigation they were doing around people's legality, unless, of course, there had been a crime committed, because then the police would coordinate. And that was across all city jobs. So I know that Equina had started working on this last spring to present it, to go forward and to make it an ordinance, so that now there would be a law in place, because an executive order is not a law. It's a strong policy, and it's one that city employees are expected to follow, but it is not something that puts legal protections in place. That is also being presented tomorrow for a vote, with the same pushback from the same group of folks. I don't know if you read the article in the Dispatch last Monday. There was the editorial. Thank you. The editorial group had supported Equina's act. So I would go and read that. It was very well written. It saw both the mayor's perspective, but it also looked at the impact that having that would pass for the immigrant community in York. What I want to do is I want to give you an idea of why this is critical right now, and both Miguel and Saimata have been working on some pretty complicated cases with regard to how this is affecting our immigration community. Do you want to go?
Right now, we have a case against a staffing agency. Apparently, it's alleged that they have been using immigrants to do work and then not paying them. So they use some type of ghost mechanism to have them punch in manually instead of digitally. And therefore, when they go and say, okay, I've worked X amount of hours, I'm now requesting my pay, they're like, no, you haven't. We already paid when you worked X amount of months ago. And they're like, no, here is the paper. Well, that doesn't say anything. So it's very, very sad to see that they're being used like that, because they're still one of us. And it's not one person coming forward. Right now we have 5 people coming forward. And it's ridiculous the way that this staffing agency And now they're pinning the staffing agency against the corporation that apparently really gave them the job, because the staffing agency sends them to a place, right? And that employer gives them the job. So now they're back and forth. No, it's the staffing. No, it's the employer. So, and it's very hard to prove because the language barrier right now, it's very strong. It's very strong. So it's very hard for them to talk to a person and actually get information from a person. So if I ask them, who did you talk to, at the employer or at the corporation? I don't know. It was a man or it was a woman. And it's right now we're seeing an uptick in this.
And these are Haitian
Yes.
migrants who have, for the time being, at least some sort of paperwork that says that they are allowed
To be here, yep.
We haven't even gotten into folks who remain undocumented and what that could be.
Yes.
The information on the staff agency, is that public information yet, or is it
No,
still
not
under
yet.
investigation?
It's once we transfer the whole report over to PHRC, because it's not in the city, then we could probably divulge that information.
Okay.
But right now, we can't.
I think that's very important for us, especially in the position I'm in with the school district, to know exactly who these people are because of the influx of other families that are coming in. And they tend to take friends to where they work or where they live. So they are referring each other to these places that are not doing the right thing. So I think the sooner the better. Thank you.
Question.
Yes.
How is that tied to the bill? Help me understand the connection.
We've moved on, I'm sorry.
So that's not tied to the bill. That's just a situation that's happening, is what you're saying?
Correct.
Oh.
So I gave the report on the bill, and then we're moving on to, no worries.
Can we go back to the bill? What is the amount of funding that we're seeking from HUD, or that we've already lost and what would be restored to?
So that's an unknown quantity because it's based on the cases that we resolve according to their stipulations. So what happens is, and I'm glad you brought us back here, though. One of the things, this is actually a big deal. One of the things that HUD said when they gave us the preliminary is, okay, you are on a timeline. We need this back in our hands, approved by your council by mid-December. Because we're at that place now where they say, then we take it to our group, it approves, and we are going to then onboard the next group of partners before January 20th. Because they cannot promise anything after January. So part of the angst around this is if it doesn't pass tomorrow, that we may lose an opportunity for potentially another 4 years. Once that happens, we all get trained according to HUD stipulations and regulations so that we can all do housing cases, so that we don't have to worry about a double dipping if somebody's being paid through ARPA, you know what I mean, that we can really work that out within our budget. But I have no idea how much money that is because we haven't gotten that far yet. It's significant, let me put it to you that way.
Anything else? Administrative?
Well, just kind of touching up on the same subject here, we definitely have seen, I probably would say for the last year or so, an increase in uptake in cases where it is coming to be found that there are rooming houses in the city of York. This is particularly being affected to the Hispanic and Haitian community has been pretty popular by what I'm keeping track of with the numbers. Just today, I had someone that came in. They called in, better say, and it was a family member that was contacting me because this person was in a fire. The property was in a fire. They have all their belongings lost because of the fire. Now they have been running around all day trying to go ahead and figure out how to get the report from the fire department just to see whether they could do it. And they were just doing that out of plain ignorance just because that's what they were told what to do. Now, the downside to that is that to some of us, they have insurance and legal agreements with people that we rent with or the houses that we own. That wouldn't help them much just because of the simple fact that they didn't have no insurance. They don't have a legal binding contract where they can go back to an insurance and be able to go ahead and make a claim with that report. These tenants, they end up being at the mercy of the landlord more frequently than not, just because of the simple fact that there is no security, no mesh waiting to go ahead and hold them once they fall off, you know. Unfortunately, these are, like I said, Haitians and Hispanics, you know, they are frequently at the mercy of the landlord just because of simple need. And a lot of times we tend to go ahead and hear on the other end of that complaint is like, okay, how can I get into a place where I can go ahead and afford it, and I'm able to go ahead and use the income that I mean, some of these people, they work 2 or 3 jobs sometimes. They are literally working one job to get out of the other one to just be able to go ahead and afford these places or be able to go ahead and actually make a move later, you know. But we definitely have seen a very large uptick on these cases of roaming houses. I've been working very closely with the Permits and Inspections Department. Just for one, keeping track of the landlords that we are seeing doing some of these outrageous, you know, and egregious acts that they often do. And number 2 is also to go ahead and keep track of how well these properties are being looked at when it comes to the permits that they are needed to go ahead and require to be able to go ahead and have a property up to code where they can be habitable and being able to go ahead and be safe, okay?
But not a rooming house.
But not a rooming house. The one thing is that there is a process the properties have to go through to be able to go ahead and qualify to be rented and being able to go ahead and be permitted correctly. That goes to a completely different conversation through a different process once you start speaking about rooming houses. More often than not, they are considered illegal just because of the simple process is much longer and much more difficult. So you don't often see those licenses and permits pass. But for the most part, that is an illegal activity that a lot of landlords nowadays are completely overlooking. They are careless because, again, you have this particular property that I'm referring to that I just got today is a property where there is known to be between 7 to 8 people living in a 2-bedroom apartment. So that within itself, if it doesn't call for a red flag and a very, very important subject to go ahead and be looked at, that we definitely have to go ahead and give it a little bit more light. And this is something that I have frequently. If I'm being completely honest, I have lost the amount of cases that I have seen and complaints that have been related to rooming houses, and it's the same conversation every single time. A lot of these places, they do not have the property up to code. Some of them, they have never applied for any type of permits whatsoever. So this is something that we have seen become more of a topic in the last year. And being completely honest, I don't foresee it to be getting any better anytime soon, given the new political climate that we're going to be seeing coming January. I'm sure that there's going to be a lot of migration from state to state when it comes to different circles of communities, moving around just to avoid certain attention. So we definitely going to go ahead and see much more happening here in this upcoming year.
Who is the authority that oversees all these permits, and how is this happening so often that in the city, because I know it's in the city, and and I can say, yes, it's our families. We do registrations and we know they're living in the same place, and they go to the welfare office and they go to the same addresses, and it is a circle of the same population that is coming in, and they have been here in the city for quite some time. But then how is this happening?
Okay, well, the Permits and Inspections Department for the City of York, they are in charge of overseeing the quality of the properties in the city. Now, I think that the last time I heard, we have about 48,000 people in the 5 square miles that we live in. Unfortunately, a lot of these tenants, they are living in the property where the landlord has no need to, they don't have any type of documentation to go ahead and actually even make it livable for a single family home if they wanted to go and rent it. So the city, we are in charge of having the ability of being able to inspect and being able to go ahead and cite some of these properties. But unfortunately, by what I imagine is that we have a large amount of landlords that are renting or sub-renting a lot of these properties, because a lot of times it's not even their own property. They may be renting it from somebody else and then renting it right to another person in room by room. That has happened multiple times as well. So I don't think that with the amount of houses and properties that we have in the city, I don't think that it would be quite fair to say that we have the manpower to go ahead and have the ability to go ahead and track all of them. And I personally don't think that we have a system yet in place that is good enough to even speak about that. But technically, the city does have a department just specifically for that, and it's just a lot of work. And a lot of times they are known to be to be found subleasing and renting these rooms in these houses. But I mean, that's if a landlord finds a fine stuck to their door or in their mailbox, they most likely than not, they can go ahead and make the payment for the fine and go about their business, So there has to be a different way of holding these landlords accountable in a different way.
That was my next question, because then once we know that they're doing this illegally, what are the consequences?
So that's a really good question. Here's one of the things that is difficult for us. We have confidentiality on our side, which helps. Because when you find that there is a rooming house, or when you find that there is somebody who is subletting various spaces in their house and it's not even theirs, if it's reported to codes and permits, they have to go out. And once they go out, they condemn the building and everybody has to leave.
Then what do you?
Because it hasn't been permitted to be that particular, it hasn't been permitted at all, either as a single family or a multi-family. And so once you say, hey, we found out that there's this property that has blah, 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 then you're going to have the rest of those folks who didn't get thrown out because of the fire, they're now going to be on the street because they have no other place to go. They're not going to get any kind of security deposit back. Because we have a confidential agreement with folks who come to us, we kind of sit in that in-between space of not, saying, but it also puts the city at a difficulty, because then they can't identify all of these places. But if they did, then we'd have an exponential number of folks now being houseless and homeless.
And that was my question. So I'm assuming there's nothing in place right now if anyone's displaced for that reason to go to next. It's like
There's nothing.
Wow. Yeah.
In August, at a meeting that I attended with the York County Homeless Coalition, August, so it's still nice out. there was one bed available on a particular evening, on a particular Thursday night in the city. And it was balmy outside, wasn't raining, there just isn't any room. And so the housing crisis is real. So John, this does bring it back to our amendment, because the amendment of at least eliminating some obstacles so people can either get into or sustain a place because of source of income is critical. So it does wrap around and bring us right back again.
I have one more question in regard. Is there an uptick in seeing a request for homes to be used for rooms? Is that, are landlords coming forward trying to make that process and they just can't get it done? Or are they just not even asking what the process is and looking to trying to get it done?
This is a little outside my purview.
Gotcha, okay.
York in general does not give permits for boarding houses.
Gotcha, okay.
There have been exceptions made. You have to come forward to the zoning committee, you have to make your case to them, then permits and codes and permits goes out and inspects it on that. But the process is much more drawn out. And so any more information that is beyond my scope, sorry. So anyway, that pretty much wraps up where we are right now, both from a legislative perspective, but also from a case perspective. We right now are in the midst of 2 mediations within the city that we are undergoing, and a third case that is, hopefully if I can get the complainant to come in this week, he works 2 jobs, then we will file this other complaint against another organization in the city. To have 3 so actively going at one time is pretty extensive. We have tried to mediate so that we don't have to go through the entire process. It saves everybody a whole lot of time and money. It maintains goodwill towards the respondent, and the complainant doesn't have the trauma of going through the long process. So, but to have 3 on top of what you've heard is pretty extensive. So those are our brief updates on what is happening upstairs these days.
Moving on to old business, new order and monthly meetings to be established. Can someone explain what that entails?
That's what we were talking about when we first came back in September, when we were talking about whether or not you wanted to continue to meet on a monthly basis or every other month or whatever timeline you would like. I have different feelings about that now than I did then, but I think that has to be your decision.
Yeah, I thought at that time that generally the council would prefer to continue with the monthly meetings, even if they were brief, so that we were kept up to date on what was going on in the commission, not council. Is there?
I agree.
I agree.
Okay.
I have a feeling that we're going to get slammed, and I think having everybody on board with what's happening, both internally and externally, is really critical for us to be successful in however we're defining that these days. I will still intersperse a training here and there when there is an opening to do so, because I think those are critical. But I also think that you need to have this information.
So someone want to speak on the diversity event?
I would love to speak on that. I have nothing to say. We have been so slammed that we really. So let me tell you the 2 things that are going on. Coming off of the one that we had this past year, it really became very apparent that what we had hoped to do was expand it to the extent that it could be more accessible to community members, where there isn't a fee that you have to pay unless you have the money to make a donation. So we have that on the one hand. On the other hand, we are expected to raise money in order to maintain and now even feed into salaries, not just regenerate more funds for next year's event. you can't do both in the same event. We tried to do it last year. Last year was great, but it was too big, and I still think a number of people were left out of the picture. What we are thinking about right now is doing some sort of gala again, perhaps at the new History Center, as a place to generate some good income and a good evening where people can both come. We haven't spoken with them. I should say I haven't spoken with them yet to make those connections. The Appel Center last year did not charge us anything to rent the space. We only had to pay for folks who were working there, things like that. We don't know what the possibility is, but the fee is not, it's within reach. So the fee that they're charging, I have to be honest, is very reasonable for an evening event. So even if we had to pay the whole thing, it's not going to break us. We have enough to do that. Then the other thing that we are going to try to do is, and again, it all depends on sort of the feeling in the city. If people are afraid, they probably won't want to do anything that's as inclusive as we would like. You don't know how that's going to play out, but we would love to be able to have, what was the term you came up with?
Oh, boy.
Oh, it was so good. It was a network.
Yeah.
Sort of an inclusion, no, we didn't use diversity or inclusion, but it was a cultural network.
Yes.
Of having, I don't know if it looks like a cultural fair or an opportunity for any person who fits into one of our categories, that sounds so terrible, but fits into one of our protected classes, to be represented in one large space where, whether that looks like multitude of tables or foods or whatever that could look like, where representation is there for everyone to see, not just as an educational experience, but an interactive and a relational experience. We have our volunteer right now is a woman who has disabilities, and she's like, that would be great to have a space where you can have open conversations about what it means to be disabled in an ableist world. To have folks who are struggling with immigration issues, if they felt safe enough to be able to talk and or want to explain what the culture of Haiti looks like now, you know what I mean? So to be able to have a space where that could happen is sort of the second event. So we're making more work for ourselves to try to put together perhaps 2 events, but they're all still in the thought process. Doesn't mean you can't volunteer. I'll take a volunteer any day, whether it is crafting what this could look like or brainstorming even what the problems could be, you know, anything like that. So if either one of those sounds like something you'd be interested in participating in, we'd love to hear from you.
I'm just asking, you might, in full disclosure, I'm on the board, but I might ask that you think about the new Crispus Attucks History and Culture Center for an event. Should be done, I think, March probably, so.
That's a good idea, too. I hadn't thought about that.
That's great.
That's a really good idea.
And also, John, just to piggyback on that, it will generate some interest in people maybe. Are they going to sell memberships to the new museum at Crispus Attucks, the way that they did at the new History Center?
I believe so.
Yeah, it will be a great
That's a good idea.
push for them
Yep.
to gain members.
Yep, that's a really great idea.
Because I know I joined the new one, right away.
Yeah.
And, it's nice, it's not that costly. And in the beginning, I'm sure they'll have a good initiative,
That's a great
little
idea.
discount on it. That'd be great.
Okay. You say there should be open in March?
I believe so, yeah.
So if we're pushing ours to late April, yeah. That's a really good, that'd be very timely. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions about the potential diversity events for 2025? You think we need to spend more time talking about them and getting an idea of exactly what we want to do to go forward, so.
Agreed.
renewal of expired terms. I thought that was taken care of in July or August, that we had submitted the names of the individuals who were renewing their terms. Was that not done?
Was it submitted to the mayor?
Yeah.
I received a message from Ricky, actually asking me who were the persons that wanted to renew. I explained to him, but I have never received anything back to whereas, if they were renewed, and I was hoping that you probably, they got back to you because they haven't gotten back to me, so,
No.
right now.
To be honest, I haven't heard if the vote has taken place.
We haven't heard, and I have been looking at all the council
Minutes.
meetings. Yes, and I have been looking through the minutes to see something about HRC, and,
So nothing's gone forward.
correct.
So what we need to do is connect with the mayor and the city council to see if they have approved those that have agreed to stay on for another year,
Okay.
or another term, not a year, but a term. Okay. I guess that's me as the leadership committee, and we haven't reorganized any of our committees, which is what's coming up here. Voting on elected officials must take place. Is that what that refers to, of who in this group, they have been voted on? I know that several have come on recently, but I know there was a question about John just filling one, Commissioner Eister just filling like the 1 month. And, my understanding is it was, long-term. So we need to make sure that we have an understanding of that as well. And I am functioning as an interim chair. And we need to, I think, vote officially on who our officers are and what positions that we need to fill. It's like, I know Samira is functioning as our secretary, but if we go into an executive meeting, then we would need to have someone on the commission that was serving as secretary. So, and the treasurer, even though most of it goes through your department, my understanding is that we really need to have someone on the commission that is working with and making sure that the commission has an understanding of those things. Am I off on any of my thinking?
I don't think you are off. I honestly don't know about the treasurer, only because everything goes through the BA. So that by the time, we are almost reinventing the wheel in terms of how things are set up. And one of the things that we might want to do, and you could do it here, or we could make an appointment with Brett Mina, where we just kind of, because Brett and I have talked about, because we're small, do we need to have all these committees, right? Or we definitely need a chair, good to have a co-chair, but then is a volunteer to take the notes on a particular night good enough? Now, that would just need to be changed in a policy, within the policy, but I do not believe it's in 185, those particular
Position.
designations. So it's not as complicated, we just have to determine what it is we need and go from there. So I think at this point, having a chair and a co-chair is probably your biggest concern.
Yeah. How do we, as the commission, want to handle that? My feeling is that we should not like necessarily say we're voting on people tonight and you get this job, or people that aren't here that we give them the job kind of a thing, but that we, at the next meeting, then have a roll a list of people who have agreed to serve, give the option of anyone else making a nomination, that would choose to, and then we do the vote at that time. Is that,
And that would probably be an executive session too, right? Where you all would have that, I'm,
well, I don't know that we've done it in an executive session in the past.
The voting will have to be.
Yeah.
okay, the voting's public, never mind.
Yeah.
So maybe that's something you can do through emails, and then next meeting, come with, this is what we're
Yeah,
doing.
I had done that in the past via email, seeing who's interested and who they, asking for nominations, but then there's still the ability to make a nomination at the time when we vote. Is that sound reasonable to everyone, that we come prepared in January to make those decisions and and we can just, while we're going back and forth, include you in the fact of whether we need to have a formal secretary and a formal treasurer,
Okay.
and get the opinions of the rest of the commission as well as we move forward with that.
Sounds good.
So,
I agree. I have a question. Did we ever decide or find out the number of spots that we needed to fill, or how many are supposed to be?
the last time I heard, Samara had that information that she'd gotten from the mayor, because what I had was not accurate based on what the mayor had listed.
Oh, you mean the renewal?
Yeah, the renewals and the city, who represents the city and who represents the county.
No, I don't have that information.
You don't have
The
that
information? Yeah, the information that I got from Ricky.
Was just the renewals.
Was the renewals, yeah,
Okay.
from Ricky and Diana Thompson.
I will go back then and see if I can find my paperwork from the spring to see who's representing what. We'll do that.
Can't we just, between us, say if we live in the city or the county?
We have to know of the ones that are open, who we need to fill, that's the.
Yeah, and I have that listed at home, so, somewhere. I will share that information then
Somehow we will
as we're communicating. I mean,
The person that's missing is Rabia, right?
And how many does the
yeah, I
board hold back?
know there are several county and several city representatives here. I don't know for sure that I know whether you're a city resident or a county resident. Jason,
Well, maybe, I recently just moved to the county recently.
you just moved
Yeah,
to the county?
yeah.
And John, are you,
County, in the county. Yep.
City.
You're in the city now, and I'm city.
I'm counting.
Okay. And I believe that
Rabia's county.
Okay, so now we might be running into some.
which means that our numbers are falling off toward the county rather than city.
Yeah,
Okay. We'll have to look at
that
that
answers
as
the
well,
question, yeah.
because it's 4-3 at this point, and we still have a couple of openings to fill.
Yeah, I think you're right, I think it is supposed to be like 8 city, 3 county.
I know when I initially started, I was in the city, and I moved recently, so I was that probably was one.
That's policy, that's not ordinance.
Working in the city doesn't help.
It's the resident.
No, it's residents. It's something that we do need to look into and make sure that at least our balance is correct. Or receive a,
I'll look at
at
the.
least a one-time, this is the way
Right.
commissioners have moved, this is where they are now, and, can they stay on based on where they were originally voted on until there's a renewal process for them?
Let me check, I think that's a policy issue and not an ordinance issue. So if it's policy, then that's something that the commission can choose to change.
Okay,
So I'll look at the policy.
okay. And also under old business, new budget request.
So budget is tomorrow. They have not approved it yet, anybody's. That is tomorrow.
It's going to be a long meeting tomorrow.
It's going to be a long meeting. I am less concerned about the budget because all I requested was $400. That will not kill us. So, yeah, it's going to be a long meeting.
Okay, any other old business we need to address?
Meeting for
Just
January.
a meeting.
Well, that's new
Oh,
business.
sorry.
Yeah. Okay, new business, we need to determine the date for our January meeting, because as usual, it falls on Martin Luther King Day. So it is scheduled currently on the 20th. Do we want to move forward to the 13th or out to the 27th?
Let's say the 27th. Works for me.
I'm unavailable both those days, so.
You're not? Okay.
I'm not available on the 27th.
So knowing we have two people that aren't available on the 27th, is the 20th a better date? Well-
That's inauguration day. I
Oh,
mean, I don't know what that means for
okay.
everybody.
Yeah,
But, and a lot of people do a long weekend over the
Okay.
King holiday, so
so,
I think we should move up if we're able to the 13th.
Yeah.
Would
Yeah.
probably be a better date, would be
It will
better
work
for me,
better.
I know.
Yes,
That works for me too.
for me also.
well, I was saying the 20th, I meant the 13th. I just read it wrong. Can we have a,
I'll make a motion to move our meeting to
Yeah,
the 13th.
this room is not available on the 13th.
it's not.
Yeah, it's not an option.
Could we go across the hall, do you know?
Well, we wouldn't be able to broadcast it. We wouldn't be able to go live. That's, I mean, we could, but yeah.
Can we then ask that one of the staff members check into available dates, and that we can put those out to the commission and go with the date that most commissioners are available then?
Sure.
Or do we want to not have the January meeting and move forward with February?
Checking from the calendar upstairs, the only available date for January would be the 27th, which is the fourth Monday. But if not, then we would take it into February, and that would be on the 17th.
I would just go to February.
That'll be on President's Day, just to let you know.
Yeah.
Which is that's a floating holiday for the city.
Yeah.
We could certainly, in the meantime, we could make plans to try to get with Brett and kind of go over some of these particulars that we talked about, Mina, with regard to county, city.
yeah, all those
We could
requirements.
try to get all that information together, knowing that if there is an emergency, we could always reconvene. I mean, the only reason there would be an emergency that I could see at this point for January is if, for some reason, we had to go to hearing ASAP, and we are no place in a case where that would be the case, where we would be that close by January. So,
Okay, can I,
do you have 1 second?
can I have a motion for whatever it was that,
I'll make a motion to have our next meeting February 17th.
There you go.
I second.
all in favor? Aye. Okay, thank you for that. And if there any other new business we need to discuss?
I want it to be off.
Okay, can I have a motion then to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
Oh,
Aye.
fine. Okay, thank you.